You can join us.
Okay. Welcome everybody to our third, not quite annual, Speakeasy Night of Storytelling. It's so wonderful that this past winter, after a 2 or 3 year hiatus, I think Molly Stammel volunteered to sort of bring it back to life. Very grateful. For me, this is one of my favorite events of the year, so I'm so glad we're here tonight. And I'm so glad we have almost a full house. So thank you all for coming tonight. We have 10 storytellers this evening, and we'll have an intermission between the 5th storyteller and the 6th storyteller. So we're going to begin now, and Chris Palmerville is going to...
Not the sound. Oh, so sorry.
All right. Hello, everybody. First off, let's just say this place looks amazing, right? So let's give it up for our hosts. All right. So.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, this is much more natural.
Molly, can you move that lantern all the way over? Yes. Move it. Yeah. Wait.
Anyone else?
Thank you so much.
Very lovely. Good job, Molly. Sorry, not to take anything. Enough! Chris Palmer.
All right, so back in 2018, I was living in New York City, and I had just started a job at ADP as a software engineer. And in true sort of nerdy fashion, one of my colleagues was obsessed with chess. So what this meant was every time we had lunch or all throughout the day, there were 2 chessboards going at all times. I got hooked, and it took basically no time for me to catch the bug. So I downloaded chess.com on my phone, and to this day I've played about 4,000 games of chess in my lifetime. I know, well, yeah, so lots of time. So also at this time, I had a roommate, Max, and Max worked for the Innocence Project. And for those who don't know, the Innocence Project fights for wrongfully convicted inmates on death row. So over their past 31 years, they have exonerated over 240 people that have collectively spent 3,800 years in jail. So this is how I met Larry. So Larry Swearingen was convicted of the rape and murder of, Melissa Trotter. Of Melissa Trotter, who at 19 years old was found by hunters in 1999 after she had been missing for 25 days. So Larry also loved chess. So one day, Max got home from work and said, "Chris, would you be interested in playing chess with Larry?" And I said, "I don't know. How? Why? When?" So after all that, I agreed. And so some time went by, and then I got my first letter. I opened up the letter, and it was a typewritten letter from Larry, introducing himself, and he sort of went through some of the mechanics of the game that we would be playing by snail mail. So in the envelope was also a hand-drawn chessboard and his first move. So I flipped over the letter, and I wrote him back, and I said, "I'm so excited to play with you." I was like, I don't know what to say. So, and I wrote my move, and I sent it off. So over the next 2 years, we continued with this game of chess, where, every month or so, I would receive a letter from Larry, and he would tell me about the goings-on in his life, He'd tell me, he'd joke with me about some games that he had won, some games that he had lost with other inmates. He would share with me his prediction for the Super Bowl and maybe the World Series. And we became sort of friends, I was writing back and forth with this guy. I started to know him. He started to know me. And he actually even sent Max and I, my roommate, a clock one day. And so we received this clock, and it's a big poster board thing. And what he had done is he had taken ink cartridges from pens, emptied them out on this poster board, and then scraped away this design of an intricate lion with a clock face in the middle. And we have that now, and it's actually been, I guess, donated back to the Innocence Project and hangs on the wall in the Innocence Project office building now. But I would like to read some excerpts from some letters between Larry and I. So, October 2nd, 2018. Dear Chris, was a pleasure to receive your letter and next move last night. As you might be aware, I had written Max days before asking if I had upset him with my sense of humor, or if my letter had arrived. This place is horrible when it comes to trusting. Difficult to explain. We'll leave it to another time. Looking at what I think you're about to do with your next move, unless it's something I've not seen yet, this will be interesting. But if you make a mistake, I will take that pretty little queen that will be left exposed. Smile. Add her to my collection of unprotected queens. Well, it's chess. All right, December 1st, 2018. Dear Chris, was wonderful to receive your letter. No worries about delay responding. Now that I'm certain my letters arrived, not stressed as before. Over the years, I've learned lives of those outside continue while mine has stayed still. Hope your time with family went well. Plenty turkey, dressing, and lots of desserts. Smile. That's sort of his key phrase is smile, all in caps. Mine was essentially another day with a bigger meal. Was happy to see you're enjoying the chess game as well. Our game has been set up on my legal box. Did play Steve and was funny. Most guys that come to this day room play Steve and lose. Unsure why, because this game sucks. After beating Steve, set our board back up and was left wondering about your next move. Tend to think I know what you're looking at, just unsure how you'll achieve it. Forgot to tell Max, just done an interview with CNN. This is true, you can all watch the CNN interview. Think it turned out well, just have no idea when it's airing. All the lawyers participated as well, so it's not like I've done this alone. They're supposed to give me notice before the interview airs. If that happens and you're interested, we'll give a heads up so you're able to watch it and give opinion how it turned out. March 24th, 2019. Dear Chris, was great to hear from you Friday evening, 22nd. Had just wrote Max asking if I'd upset you guys. He seemed to be really nervous that I had upset him, or Max had upset him, but didn't tell me, so I was expecting to receive the move anytime shortly after. With everything happening, this place has started to really take its toll on my mental health, which stinks. If I can recognize the problems, only wonder what others recognize, but don't say anything. If you should lose the move sheet, I've got a copy here. Oftentimes, we'll look at the board anticipating your next move. Being on Death Watch, got a neighbor and enjoys playing, and have to admit he's got me 2-1 in series. The boy has serious mental health issues stemming from organic brain disease, but was sent to DR for killing TDCJ guard. I'm not sure what that is, but that's essentially death sentence regardless of mental health problems. Poor impulse control is best way to describe the guy. Take good care of yourself, do enjoy the game, and appreciate you taking the time to let me win. And the final one, Dear Chris, was pleasure like usual to receive your letter with next chess move. Sorry Max and you was subject to the CNN show. From what I understand, was made to look rather bad when it's far from the truth. I'm damn sure tired of being accused of things. Never questioned, never arrested, never convicted, yet can be accused on national television, giving impression it's all true. And you can discuss whatever, not like anything is a secret. Anyways, let's play chess. You're still in alright position, just depends on your next move whether I make you castle queenside or not. And you will be castling shortly. Smile. My only concern is staying alive long enough to finish the game. Otherwise, we'll have to concede and that will suck. Wonder if the courts would grant another stay so we could finish the game. Smile. Have to laugh about all this, otherwise we'll lose my mind before Texas tries to murder me. Glad Max and you like the drawing. This is the clock. Can tell you this, it is unique. I've never done anything like that before with the clock. Actually, after sending it, the warden said we could not send such things, preventing me from sending others out. Then was able to show where in policy I'm able to, and he changed course on that decision. Either way, Max and you have got the original and only one I've done with the clock. All right, dude, let me close here and write my mama. She is hanging in there as best one can. Only imagine what your family thought after seeing me on that CNN show. Sincerely and God bless. Handwritten LS. And a smile with a big eyes and smile. So on August 21st, 2019, Larry Swearingen was executed by lethal injection in the state of Texas. I remember Max came home that day and he was shaken. They had spent hours and hours until the last minute trying to get his execution stayed, but they weren't able to. Max and I poured a glass of whiskey and cheers to each other to Larry. His last words were, God forgive them, they don't know what they're doing. And we never did get to finish our game. Thank you.
What a way to start. Well, thank you, Chris. That was really good. So throughout the evening, what we tried to do is sort of balance out the stories, and you know, out of all of the stories, we thought, well, Chris's was just a really intriguing way to start the evening, so that's good. Good job. Our next storyteller, who adds an element of energy to the evening, is from Mike Flannery, and his theme is Manhattan
Trilogy.
Okay.
Thank you, Laura Smoke. Good to see everyone this evening. For those of you that know me, I apologize now. For those of you that do not, these stories are your disclaimer. So if everyone is doing well, I'd like to give a particular shout out to the people at Whirless. Let's give them a great hand of applause. The amount of work that goes down in this village of people that just give and put their time into doing stuff is pretty amazing, by the way. So just so respectful of everyone that pulls together this event and does all those things. So great shout out there. So I'm going to give you a trilogy. Jennifer, my wife, been very lucky to live dual lives between New York City and this fabulous village of Round Lake. So obviously you can experience a lot of things in that amount of time. So I'll start off with Jennifer picking an amazing pad in Soho. So if anyone has seen the movie Big with the handball courts, we have an apartment right on that handball court in Soho, which I think is probably one of the best neighborhoods in all of Manhattan. So I was working for a company for 3 years. Finally decided to hang my own shingle. I'm excited, starting my own business in downtown Manhattan, 189 Broadway and Day Street by the old World Trade Center. So you could walk to work, grab a taxi. So one of my arch nemesis at the time, fast little son of a bitch, Spike Lee. So he lived on the corner of West Broadway and Prince Street. And getting up early, both early birds, I'd compete with him for taxis. I'd lose because he's just quick. But anyway, so my first office space is in a Helmsley building, the classic Helmsley family. It's a 2-story walk-up, not very fancy. It's the first office, but it's amazing. I had this fabulous administrative assistant at the time, Mary Daly, Irish woman, gatekeeper, protector. Nothing gets through her. So I'm getting these calls. She's getting these calls. Oh, thank you. She's getting these calls from some guy Anthony Sorrentino. He says we owe him for like 5 months worth of arrears on garbage removal. So I'm like, Mary, we get it through the building. It's recycle, they come in and clean, we're kind of done. She goes, Mike, this guy's not gonna go away. So I'm like, okay. So I finally take the call. I'm like, hey, what's up? He goes, hey, Anthony Sorrentino, you've got this extra waste removal thing that you have for your property. I'm like, no, comes with the Helmsley lease, we do this. He goes, hey, you never know what can happen. You move, you've got furniture, you've got all sorts of things that can happen in the city. That's not covered in use. I'm like, dude, I'm not paying you 6 months of $189 a month at all. I get it removed, so stop it. We're in a 2-story walk-up. So outside is an iron gate that you have to pull up to get into a glass door to walk to the 2nd floor. So after I tell him no, I'm an early bird, I come in. It's probably 7 a.m. in the morning, and the metal door is crunched. It's completely backed into by a waste management truck. So you cannot open the metal door to get into the glass door to get into the office. First calls to the landlord, I'm like, hey man, metal door's broke. They're like, hey, we don't cover that. I'm like, what do you mean you don't cover that? They're like, no, that's read your lease. We cover the inside door. Anything to the external street, we're not part of. So I'm like, oh, damn. So I gotta make a phone call. $6,200 later to get the door fixed. I'm like, oh damn it, this sucks. What am I gonna do? Pay the bill. Gotta get the employees into the office. So sure enough, phone rings in the afternoon. It's Anthony Sorrentino. He's like, hey Mike, tough day, eh? I'm like, yeah, tough day. He goes, see, you never know when these things can happen, but I'm here for you. Tell you what I'm gonna do. You give me a check for 1 month. I'm gonna wipe away the arrears, and when things like this go down, you don't have to worry about it. So I'm like, the check will be waiting downstairs. So, that's story number 1. The rules of New York and what can happen, and you'd be unaware as like a hayseed from Greenfield Center. So now let's bring it back into Soho where we lived. At the time, after work, I played basketball every day. Leave this, leave that. We had a basketball court right out in front. And in front of our building, we had a Korean laundromat, and we had a social club. I go out there and play ball every day, knew all the kids in the neighborhood, they call me Big Mike. And these guys that were outside the social club, they'd always be hanging out. And they'd be like, hey Big Mike, you got game, well you house the court today and stuff like that. Back in the day, I played basketball until I was 40 years of age. And I'd be like, hey, what's up, Sal, Anthony, Tony? It's Sal, Anthony, Tony. They all have the same name. So, one day, I go over there and I'm like, hey guys, what are you doing back there? So, and they're like, you play cards? I like to play cards. They slap me on the shoulder like, Mike, this is not your club. I'm like, okay, cool. So, now we'll follow this into story number 2, which is called the Soul Food Incident. So Jennifer, again, she gets on top of this cool hip place. Best soul food in the village. A little band that plays there, a little bit of jazz, a little bit of soul music. Apparently, you have to call ahead of time, order what you're going to eat, and then you can get a table. I don't think we got through, so we end up going in. I'm wearing a double-breasted blue suit with pinstripes and a red tie. So when I put that on, I could look a little bit mafia-like, or the Tony Soprano thing. So we go in, and we're like, hey, Flannery, reservation, dark, loungy, cool, open kitchen in the back. 3 guys are jamming in the corner. So the woman comes out and she goes, Flannery, right? Like, yeah, dinner reservation. We didn't have a reservation. And she goes, all right, come on. So she takes me back to the kitchen, me and Jennifer. Go to the back of the kitchen, and we're like, okay, I'll see the tables back here, whatever. She takes out a wad of $100 bills. And she starts putting them down on the table. And I'm like, no, we're just here for dinner. What is it? And she goes, you motherfuckers. And she starts putting more money out on the table. I put my hand down, I'm like, no, you got me confused with somebody else. We're really just here for some dinner and some music. and there was no tables, but somehow she got us in there. So story number 2 is don't ever take that money if you're in that position. I would not be here to tell that tale. So got accused of being a little bit of a gangster in that particular situation, but amazing situation to be in. Tale number 3. So obviously Soho, you're in the middle of the village. It's a Chinatown. Little Italy's there. You already got the Gambino crime family is the little social club. So you see Vinny the Chin running around with his white garb on, if anybody knows that, a bathrobe, basically to verify that he was crazy. So run around the neighborhood in his bathrobe. The kid, Vinny Garganti. I'm like, I'm a hayseed from New York. I know nothing about any of this stuff. I finally figured out because the kids in the neighborhood are like, hey, that is the Garganti Social Club. I'm like, oh wow, thanks for telling me, guys. So during that period, is Bernadette in the room? Oh, the Bad Riding's time, rocking the Bronx. So we go see the band Black 47 play all the time.
Yeah.
So after that, I don't know if anybody went to our wedding here in fabulous Round Lake, but my co-best man was one of my mates from college, Jonathan Arundale. So we'd go see Black 47, and 21 Mott Street, Wo Hop, was a Chinese restaurant that would stay open 24/7. So if it's 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, whatever, you go to Wo Hop, and you could always be served. There's great food. They're used to the Jennifer type of crowd. So we go in there one night, we're having a fabulous meal, and we come out, it's probably 3 o'clock in the morning. Oh, one little part of the story I missed out. Earlier, we're at one of the oldest taverns in the city called Pete's. We have some leftover food. We leave the food in the taxi. So that's number 1. We end up at Wo Hop downtown in Chinatown, and it's probably 3 o'clock, maybe 3:30. We are out late, we're partying, we're having a good time. So we get ready to leave, we go upstairs, and there's really nobody on the street except 2 gangs. And it's a legit tongue war going down. If it's not 20 on 20, it's 25 on 20. We walk outside, there's cleavers, there is chains, there is bats in their hand, and they're running towards each other, and they're running back. Nobody actually hit anybody, but you can see it's a complete territorial war going on. So me and my friend Jonathan, like, this is fucking awesome! We go around this one little cement barrier, we're kind of checking it out, we don't want to go anywhere. Jennifer's like, ah! You gotta get out of here, get a taxi! And we're like, trying to hold on for a few more minutes, because this is like Bruce Lee Central. So, anyways, finally a taxi swings around, we pile into the taxi real quick to get out of there, so we don't know how it went down. And we got in the taxi, there was the Pete's leftover food.
Thanks, Mike. That was very entertaining. So our next storyteller is Erin, and she's going to be sharing with us a story about the strength of her mother.
Not quite as tall as everything else. Hi. So I changed my story a little bit. It's not going to just be about my mom, but about just the history of my family and the strong women that came before me, and my feminist dad who's sitting here. Hi, everybody. I just presented in Phoenix, Arizona, did a 90-minute presentation to a packed room of people, and this is by far scarier.
We're all friends. We got
a little bit more personal. So one of the things that Jeff and I say to each other all the time is, why are you here? It's kind of an inside joke between he and I. We say it to each other once in a while, we laugh, and we go on with our day. But I think I often think about that. Like, why am I here? How did I end up here in Round Lake, kind of living this life that I have? I think it's pretty special and unique. And then I think about like the butterfly effect, right? Like the butterfly flaps its wings and all the things that had to happen in order for me to be here. So I'm going to start kind of in the early 1900s in LaPorte, Indiana, which is where my dad's family, his mom's family is from there. His dad's family is just north of there in Michigan City. But my grandmother was born to a family that had she had many aunts. I think there was four of them, maybe 5. But their lives were just very unique. Only one of them ever married. None of them had children. So she became really close with her aunts. And so just a little brief history about them. Her aunt Agnes was the dean of students, I believe, at the high school where my grandmother went. Her aunt Cora was a biology teacher. And Cora lived kind of an interesting life for someone, again, in the early 1900s. We're talking, my grandmother was born in, I believe, 1923 or around there, only 4 years after we were really looking at women having the right to vote. And all of these women had already made these decisions to kind of get their own careers. And Cora, not only did she have her own career, but she was in a relationship with a woman. My grandmother never really recognized that, but that was during a time that people didn't recognize same-sex relationships, and they were living their best lives. Cully lived, oh God, what I would give to be able to speak with her. She was a truant officer and guidance counselor at an all-boys school in South Chicago. I worked at LaSalle School, so if anybody knows about that, it's a boys' residential school, and I'm a social worker there, so I think she and I would have a lot to talk about. My grandmother's aunt Olga owned a dress shop in LaPorte, which, again, I mean, these women when they were doing these things, they barely had the right to vote, and here they are working without husbands, owning businesses. My grandmother modeled for her dress shop. She used to talk so fondly of it. Modeled for the dress shop and would take a boat to Chicago so that they could go and pick out dresses together. And my grandmother would talk about walking down Michigan Avenue and, just, again, like, such strength. And I'd like to think that I got a little bit of determination from them because they really were amazing. So then I look at my mom's side of the family, and around that time, my mom's mother, Peggy, who was closer in age to my other grandmother's aunts than she was to my grandmother, so around, again, 1920s, she was a teenager, and she found herself in a situation where she was one of 3 girls, one much older, one much younger than her, and her mother was struggling with some significant mental health issues. When I first heard about that, when I was a little bit younger than I am now, I thought, oh man, this is really sad. So many women were diagnosed with mental health issues when it was really postpartum issues. And the more that we've discovered, and my mom and I have talked, it does look like it was schizophrenia. She had to go live in a psychiatric center until she passed in the 70s. That alone is a whole other story, maybe another time. But Peggy dropped out of school when she was in 10th or 11th grade so that she could take care of her father, take care of her mother, and take care of her little sister. She started working at the phone company in Albany, and she did all of that because of the love of her family. And the little bit that I knew her, she passed away when I was about 11. The little bit that I knew of her, I don't think she would have done it any other way. I don't think she would take it back. She was a pretty amazing person. And then, she had my mom when she was about 41, and as my mom grew up, she went to Catholic school. She was dyslexic. I don't even know if that was a diagnosis back in the 50s and 60s. And the nuns used to call my mom, because they didn't really care if she had a learning disability, they used to call my grandmother and say, you need to get her out of here. Like, she's not going to amount to anything. Like, just pull her out of school. And as I told the story at my mother's retirement, from 35 plus years of teaching, Peggy was on the phone with them, and she said, no, I will not pull her out of school. She will finish school, she will graduate from college, and she will be a teacher. And sure enough, like I said, 35 years, my mom persevered through whatever it was, dyslexia, learning disabilities. She taught kids with learning disabilities, and she helped develop my brother and sister and I into the people that we are now. So that's kind of the big background, right? My parents, interestingly enough, met at a residential school, one that I would later go and work at. So when I think about those things again, it's like the way the butterfly flaps its wings and all of these things come together. They met there. I had my brother and sister and I, and then my dad ended up being a stay-at-home dad while he was getting his PhD. In 1995, I'm told that there weren't a lot of stay-at-home dads. And when he would go and get me at school and preschool, the mothers would be kind of astonished that it was him and not my mom. And, what's happening here? This isn't the right thing to be doing. But then, he finished school, he chose to go into a career in gender equity, which again, I don't think many dads were jumping at the bit to do in 1988 or 1989. But lucky enough for me, by the time I was 12, I had accompanied him on a trip to New York City, and I was fortunate enough to meet Gloria Steinem, because that was the kind of work that he was doing. That was the kind of thing that he wanted to make sure he was exposing us to, and seeing that, much like all of the people that came before him, women and men can do the same things. So in the 30-some years since meeting Gloria, which was quite an event, there have been a lot of ups and downs. There have been fall flat on my face moments. There have been humongous feats. And at the end of it all, I think about it, and I think about all of the people, all of the women who had their hands on my back as I went through all of this. So to kind of wrap it all up, here I am in Round Lake with half a house.
It'll be great.
Half a house. Some days Jeff and I don't know what's going to be up from down. But I just gave a presentation in Phoenix to a whole bunch of people in a packed room for something that I developed, something that I put together. And I have to think that a lot of this wouldn't have been possible without the women and my dad who came before me and stood behind me in order to make it all possible. So I know there's not a lot of women that are going to be standing up here tonight. So I hope that you realize that you're strong enough to do this too. You have a lot of people cheering for you, whether they are here in the flesh or if they came before you. And maybe next year, you'll be able to tell either your story or a story.
Thank you, Karen.
Very nice.
And it's very nice, this transition from your story to the next story this evening. It's always so interesting to hear stories about the people who came before us and how they influenced our lives and made us to the people that we are today. And our next storyteller, Jason Miller, is somebody, along with his wife Samantha, who have done just that for somebody else. So welcome.
So hopefully you guys don't mind me reading off my paper. but,
Heck no.
It's okay.
This is the story of the life of a foster dad. Being a foster dad has been the most rewarding and challenging thing I have done. Samantha and I were shotgunned into parenthood May 4th of last year. We learned how to comfort and care for what seemed like forever junk drunk mini adults. They would stumble, fall, and ramble on nonsense, just like many of our friends. There were days of great joy, swimming in the pool, playing in the yard, the family events where the girls smiled ear to ear. There were times where they make you laugh in ways you never thought you could. Then there was the fights before bed, the temper tantrums over nothing or everything. No matter what happened, good or bad, there was one thing that everyone could count on after all was over. A kiss goodnight, and I love you. Made the bad, the ugly, and the good all worth it. If asked if I would do it again, yes, in a heartbeat. To be a part of the lasting memories for you and for them is irreplaceable. The simple trips to Home Depot turned into musical performances with PVC pipe. To hours of time snuggling on the couch. The time one jumped into the pool and didn't realize you go underwater. The campfire you cook s'mores at. The trip to the RV dealer where a hand gets stuck in a vending machine. To a 2-year-old climbing into a chair at the same store, peeling off some workers' sticky notes in a chair and at a desk, and screaming, "I'm working!" Some of you may understand the feelings they instill, the lessons they teach. I have been the luckiest foster dad ever, and I can't wait to see what is in store for me around the corner. I will never forget what it's like watching them grow and being a part of their life. It has been an experience.
That was really sweet, Jason.
That was great.
And you all already know, but I'll say it again. Samantha and Jason fostered 2 and then 3 little tiny girls for a year. And whenever you saw them in the village at little events, it was adorable. It was adorable. So. There are times in our life when it seems as though we're getting a message from somewhere else. Something is telling us something. And sometimes it's a really beautiful experience. And tonight, Robert Faber is going to share just such a story with us.
Howdy. This is a story about a weirdo at a rest stop who wants to talk about religion. But it's also a story about monkeys. You'll know the weirdo when you meet the dog. So as background, I mean, I know I'm in a village. My wife Julie and I only moved here 2 years ago. Thanks. Go closer. We first looked at 2 apartments back in 1992 or 3 when I started teaching at SUNY Adirondack. Except we never came to look at the second apartment. The first one was over in Willow Glen, and we took it. And we had like 6 or 7 apartments after that before we got a house here. The second apartment that we didn't see was here. But we're here. 30 years. So we met in grad school out in Syracuse, and occasionally, you go to a conference, right? Aaron knows you go to conferences. So I was coming back from a conference. It had to be 2 years to the day after we had buried my mother. My mother died at 49, cancer. And I'm coming back from a conference by myself, and I'm coming through Ohio and the Southern Tier. I don't know if you've driven the Southern Tier before satellite radio. All you could get was evangelical radio out of Pennsylvania. And it was difficult to listen to, but you have to listen to something to stay awake when you're driving the Southern Tier Expressway there. So I'm driving and listening, and it's winter, it's early April, and I stopped. This was back in 1992 when we still had winter. So I stopped at this rest stop in the Southern Tier. I forget what town. It's not far from Chautauqua, which has another residence for this place. We also didn't have windshield wipers on the backs of cars like we have now. We didn't have them then, so you had to clean your windshield with snow. And I was cleaning my windshield with snow, and I hear a car pulling behind me. And I didn't really think of it. I'm at a rest stop. It's daylight. When I turn and look, it's a big white car, like a hearse. It has a crucifix epoxied to the front of it, like in chrome, but epoxied. It wasn't quite on straight. And the car was sputtering. It's a big old car. This is early 90s. This is probably a car from the early 70s. It had seen better days. Rusty, crazy car. And the car pulls in, and the guy steps out, bearded guy, beat up parka, and I knew immediately he was going to ask me for something, right? Because that's what's going to happen at the rest stop. So I clean the window and I said hello to him, and I go to get in the car, and he said, "Excuse me, I'm running on fumes here, and I'm going to see my mother. Can you spare a couple bucks?" I'm a grad student, but I can't tell him I don't have a couple bucks. So I go in the car and I find all the quarters. My dad taught me you always carry quarters in an old prescription thing, orange one with white top. You have it in your car now, right? Only quarters. Because I don't know if you remember, well, you will, that's what you had to put in the parking meters, right, before all of what we had. So I gave him all my quarters. It was probably $2.50. How much gas could you buy for $2.50 then? It's more than what you could get now. And he thanks me, he hands me a piece of paper. And he starts talking to me about the sightings of the Holy Mother in Yugoslavia, in Medjugorje. And he's going on about it, right? And first I want to tone him out, right? But then I got thinking about all this evangelical radio I've been listening to, because it keeps you awake. And that stuff was fake. It was fake accents. It was fake. You can hear a lot of it today on the radio, actually, around here, if you drive around. A lot of fakery. This guy was real. He really believed. I'm looking at the paper, I'm listening to him. He says hundreds, maybe thousands of people have gone to see this, right? I don't know if he's looking for more money, but I didn't have any more to give to him, so I'm listening to him talking about this. And as I'm listening, I don't know if you're like me, I have sort of an inside and an outside. So like right now I'm talking to you, but I have an inside narrative too. It's going, and it's thinking about the other things that I really would like to talk about. So when I'm listening to him, next year, when I'm listening to him, I'm also thinking about, what I want to hear more about this, right? And so I'm giving him my attention. But I wanted to tell him, hey, 2 years ago today, we buried my mother, right? My parents weren't supposed to get married. She was Roman Catholic, Polish. He was French and Swedish Protestant. In order for them to get married, he either had to become Roman Catholic or a degree that we little kids would be Roman Catholic, and his stipulation was they can be Roman Catholic, but they can't be altered ways. I don't know what he was thinking. That's what he was thinking. So that's what happened, and I wanted to tell him about my mother and about going through cancer treatment and over in New Hampshire. I grew up in Vermont. I wanted to tell him about when we had the burial, she'd been cremated. And it was in a cemetery where I used to dig graves because I worked for a funeral home. Another story too. I didn't dig this one, but I did take a bell out of my mother's bell collection and I dropped it into the grave. And I didn't think anybody saw me, but I think my brother saw me. But I wanted to tell this guy, listen, 2 years ago today, I dropped a bell in my mother's grave and I'm waiting to hear it. Right? I'm waiting, maybe in a dream, right? Maybe in reality, I don't know. right? So he must have known that I wanted to say, because I didn't say this to him, I wanted to. He must have known I wanted to say to him, because he said, I thank you. I gotta let my dog take crap. He opens his door, and a little dog with only 3 legs jumps out and has a bell on it.
No.
Don't you love it when things like that happen? Seriously. So thank you, Robert. So we're going to take a 15-minute intermission. I want to let you know that we've got popcorn and water in the back. If you have, although most of you have your little sneaky snacks on your table, we do have popcorn. I think Jennifer Flannery spent hours this afternoon. Also, I wanted to say thank you to Dan Pesca. Every time we have an event and we need sound and lights, Dan is always just willing and available to come in and spend several hours getting everything set up so that we can have what we have tonight, which is a very cozy setting with very good sound. So thank you, Dan. Usually, I think of the night of illumination as that moment that marks the beginning of summer. Because of the timing of Speakeasy this year, I feel like this is really marking the beginning of summer 2021, and I'm really looking forward to all of this year's excellent events. So our next storyteller. As you look around the room, you probably know most of who's in here, but maybe not intimately. This person, that person, and then there's a lot of familiar faces. But there's one person in this room who knows everybody. His name is Oz. He's going to be sharing our story for the second half of the show. Thank you.
Howdy, folks. Alright. So, as everybody knows, I work at the post office. I've been here for 6 months, and first off, I'd like to thank everybody for coming into attendance, and Warless for putting it together. Specifically, Molly for getting the decorations up. Alright, so, as you all may or may not know, I am married. This story happens to deal with the night before and the night of my wedding.
There are children in the room.
This is all being recorded so my wife can see it too. I need the approval. So, I went to Pakistan for this arranged marriage. I was nervous, and the entire time, for the 2 weeks I was over there, I got to spend maybe 1 hour alone with my wife.
Oh my God.
Every other second was spent on getting everything ready for the wedding. The night before, we had finally taken the trip to the jewelry store. As per our customs, per our religion, we have something called hakmat. Hakmat is something that's put aside that is only for my wife, and she can use it however she wants. God forbid, knock on wood. If anything happens to me, she has that along with anything else that will go to her. God forbid, knock on wood, again. If we were to separate, that goes to her along with everything else. It's to make sure she can be sustained after. So, because I'm an American, I went a little overboard, and I decided to get her weight in gold.
Oh.
We come, and again, Money goes a long way. So we're driving back to the house, and the entire time, I'm just thinking to myself, oh my God, I'm getting married. We get to the house, the gate man's not there. In the car is me, my mom, my aunt, and my uncle. My uncle pulls out the key, he's like, hey man, why don't you get the door? I get out the car, I walk over to the door, and the entire time, oh my God, I'm getting married. I finally get the door open, and I turn around, and I see someone pulling my aunt out of the car.
Oh no.
At first, I'm like, okay, it's probably my nephew, like 5 years younger than I am, but why is he dragging her out? I don't know. Maybe that's how they play. I'm still not used to it. So, I walk over and I notice this is, in fact, not my nephew. It's not my cousin. It's a random. We are being bribed. My mother, being the smart woman she is, takes the gold, these velvet boxes, shoves them under the car, steps out, hands up. My aunt, dragged out, is screaming bloody murder, thief, thief, thief. And this is important for the story. My aunt had what looked like giant bangles that were rejects from Mr. T's collection. And she's screaming, waving her hands up and over her head, just screaming, thief, thief. And every time the thieves didn't notice this, she's like, ah, thief, thief, thief. Like that would stop them, but it kind of did. We were very lucky that night because 2 minutes into this, I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, I'm going to get married tomorrow. And I'm being robbed to death. What am I going to show up with? Oh my God. So I walk over, you know, I'm American. Hey! He turns around, I have a gun waving. So this is exactly how it happened. Hey! And as I back away very slowly, stand next to my mother and my uncle who's cursing out my aunt, like calm down, relax. What can we do for you? Trying to reason with this thief. I'm thinking to myself, I can't get shot, I'm getting married tomorrow. They speed off, thank God did not take anything. I kid you not, it was like a miracle. Every single one of us went back into the house, locked up all the doors, had a relative at every door with a gun, and I'm in the bedroom thinking to myself, oh my God, smoking the last of my duty-free menthol cigarette. Awake all night, I'm gonna get married tomorrow. The next day, I turned into bridezilla. Everybody's not getting ready. I'm over here freaking out. We rush over to the event. We get to the hall. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, I'm getting married. We get into the hall. There comes my wife, all decked out, beautiful, like a porcelain doll. I swear I have photos. And I walk over, I'm like, hey, you look beautiful. She's like, thank you. We're trying to get out to the venue, and we have this whole floor. We have booked this entire floor, but there's still a party going on, and people are taking their sweet time leaving. I'm like, whatever. I've waited this freaking long. Light up a cigarette. We end up going upstairs, and now there's this one meeting room with a balcony. I walk over because courteous man I am. I go introduce myself. I go over to the maitre d'. I'm like, hey man, pleasure to meet you. Thank you so much for having everything decked out. Mind you, this is not in English. I'm speaking to him in Urdu. The man looks me up and down, and the equivalency of what he said was, dude, fuck out of my face. Go sit down. I don't want anything to do with you. I get it, you're from overseas. Don't care. Go away. Like, whatever. We had 3 cameramen. All the guests from her side and my side were occupied. My guests were all eating. I'm standing there waiting for food. Nobody wanted to bring me nothing. Her side, her sisters bring her and me food. They bring us sweets, they bring us soda. Her cousin, God, I love this man, he brought over a piece of my own wedding cake. We finally get this, and he's the one who got the main camera guy, who was supposed to take our photos, and he did. And I wasn't kidding when I said she looked like a freaking porcelain doll. Now we recite the prayers, they ask me. Now this is the part where you learn Oz can speak multiple languages. They recite the prayers and they ask me, Ji aap ko kabool hai, which is, do you agree to the terms of marriage? I say, kabool hai. I'm like, he's like, okay. Do you agree? He asks me again. I'm like, and I look at him like stupefied. How? Yes, I do kabool hai. And he's like, one more time, really loud. And I'm like, are you serious? I'm up there, I'm screaming. I'm like, kabool hai. Yes. She looks at me, she starts giggling because, yes, this is actually how they're supposed to do it. I didn't know this. I thought he was just petting a bear. So I asked her the day I got there, listen, there's one thing I want. Can you please let me do this? I'm your wife, of course. So I tell her, there's this one photo I want to take. Do I have your permission to have this photo taken? She looked at me, and her eyes are telling me, I hope to God it's not dirty. And she's like, sure. I'm like, we're gonna need a camera guy. She's like, okay, cool. Because, yeah, I'm not pulling out my cell phone. So we find that same balcony, walk over, and who's there with the camera guy? Her cousin taking headshots, because, you know, he wants to be a model. Which, by the way, it worked out, because I recently just found out he got scouted, so yeah. We walk over to the balcony, and her sisters follow, her mother's following. Guests have been using this place for photos, they're leaving. And we get right there in front of the balcony. Perfect shot, you see the sky, you see the skyline, you see all the lights. Beautiful. I'm like, this is where we're gonna do it. So I turn around, I'm like, so I'm 6'2", my wife is 5'2". So she looks up at me. I'm like, Fatima,
Yes.
do I have your permission to pick you up? I'm wearing 10 pounds of makeup and 10 pounds of jewelry. And I'm like, okay. I'll take that as a yes. So I go, put my arms around her, I'm like, 3, 2, 1. They kill the lights. In that moment, I did not know that they killed the lights. I'm thinking it's one of the rolling blackouts. Because overseas, you only have electricity, gas, and water for maybe 12 hours a day. And I'm like, all right, somebody go tell them to hit the lights. The same maitre d' who gave me that stank attitude comes back. जी आप सबको जाना पड़ेगा, आपको नहीं पता ये क्या हो रहा है, आपको जाना पड़ेगा, आपका टाइम हो गया. He's telling me, sir, I apologize, but you need to leave. Your payment is done. Your time is up. I'm looking at him like, भाई, एक फोटो लेनी है, जाने देंगे, एक ही फोटो लाइट लगा दे. Bro, it's one photo. Just get the lights on. Just real quick. We'll leave. We're already on the way out. Just one photo. One photo. जी नहीं आप सबको जाना पड़ेगा आपका कोई इधर काम नहीं है हमारे पास बहुत पार्टी आ रही है अब जाए Sir, I don't care. You need to leave. We have another party coming. You need to go. Now, all this pressure that's been built up is I'm starting to bubble. Again, I reiterate, I've only spent an hour alone with my wife. Every other time, the 6 hours that we spent together, we're with everybody around us because we're not doing anything. I look at him and I'm like, भाई एक फोटो है, एक फोटो के लिए आप इतना कर रहे हैं, एक ही फोटो लेनी है, मैं यार अमेरिका से आया हूँ यार, अमेरिका. Bro, one photo? You're really giving me this much trouble for one photo? Just get the lights back on. I came all the way from America. America! जी मुझे कोई परवाह नहीं है, आप किधर से आए, आपका टाइम हो गया, अब जाए. He said, say, I don't care where you come from, you need to go. I don't care, you can do it later, go. As soon as he said those words, I just couldn't take it anymore. As you all know, I am well-spoken. But what I have said before is, I'm from Brooklyn. So, you keep pushing the bear, you're gonna get it. So, this entire time, I've been thinking to myself, oh my God, I'm getting married. Oh my God, I'm getting married. Oh my God, I'm getting married. The one time I forget this, I forget I'm in another country. And I go to him, and I look him dead in his face. Yo, you got the wrong one, buddy. Just like this. In English. Yo, you got the wrong one. Get these lights on. You know how much we spend on this freaking place? Get all the lights on. I'm sick and tired of this. I ain't had no food. I ain't had no time. I ain't get no time with my wife. I ain't get time with nobody. You're not going to give me this. You're not going to do this to me. I kid you not, the man just stared at me. Not like he was like, oh my God, what the hell just happened? But like, what did he say? My wife is next to me. She looks up, she's like, oh my God. Her sisters are standing right there. Oh my God. Her cousin. By the way, her beautiful cousin, who's now a model, thank the Lord, is standing there. Oh my God. Pulls the camera out. Mind you, lights still ain't on. Her mother is standing there. Oh my God. My mother's all the way on the other end. I'm like, this guy turned around and he left, and I'm seeing red. I'm like, yo, I don't care what happened. Sare, phone nikalo, flash lagao, photo leni hai. I don't care what happens. Everybody pull out your phones, turn the flash on, take a freaking photo. We'll keep the best one. So I'm like, Fatima, are you ready? 3, 2, 1. And I kid you not, something like out of a movie. The lights come back on. The emergency lights come on. The floodlights come on. The helicopter lights come on. The spotlights from downstairs are on, flashing up. And there's fireworks going on.
Oh.
And in that moment, I didn't think, oh my God, I'm getting married. I thought to myself as I stared at my wife after this photo was taken, while I still have her in my arms, who, by the way, it's been a whole year, as of May 7th, that I actually got to hold my wife, because she's still over there, and immigration is a bitch.
Oh.
But I get to hold her, and I look at her, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm married.
Oh.
And as soon as we left, I made the realization after, oh my God, I'm just married, to, oh my God, we're married, and who's got that damn photo? The only photo to survive is this
Shoddy, blurry.
Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much. And congratulations. And I hope you'll be united. Our next story is a story of fate and fortune. And our storyteller is Tracy Solaric.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Wirlis, Molly, Laura, Jennifer, for putting on this fabulous event. Just like Erin said, I'm used to talking in front of 400 strangers with content that I know like the back of my hand. This story I'm going to share, of course I do know it, but it's just a little nerve-wracking. So pardon my little notes. Is that okay? Yes. I love that, of course. I was born December 28th, Tamara Gail Raymer. I was in foster care for about a week, and my parents adopted me, and my sister Pam was just 4 years old. 4 years old. And I asked my mom, I said, Mom, how did you come up with the name Tracy Ann? And she said, I always loved the name Tracy Ann. Aren't I lucky? So time goes on, and it's Mom and Dad and Pam that's 4, and Tracy's who about 6 weeks old. And Mrs. Greenlee said, Regina and Tom, we have another baby. She's 2.5, and her name's Kristen. And my mom and dad were so careful because they didn't want to interrupt the order. They wanted Pam to be the oldest and Tracy to be the youngest, so they adopted Kristen at 2.5 years old. This is such a beautiful story that when my parents had the meeting with the 5 of us, it was before Christmas, that Chrissy came to the house and we had a wonderful time, and Dad took Chrissy back to Mrs. Greenlee's, and Mrs. Greenlee and my dad were talking. We said, after Christmas, we're going to adopt Kristen. And then my dad's ready to leave. He gets in the car and he's about to shut the door, and little Chrissy, at 2.5 years old, Daddy, Daddy, take me home. And so there they did. And that tells you about my parents. They just opened their family, their doors, to these 2 little adopted girls. And let me tell you, through my whole life, I knew I was chosen. I knew I was loved. And adoption was never, ever an issue. It was just part of our family. And then, in 1981, we're sitting at our kitchen table. We grew up in the country. We went skiing. We had this awesome sledding hill. We had the big swing. We caught little tadpoles. Like, we really had an amazing, amazing childhood. It was just perfect, the 5 of us. I'm the baby. I'm like, oh, I kind of like this role. And my dad's sitting here, and Mom's here, and the rest of us are on the table. And my dad said, we're going to add a new member of the family. I said, oh, we're going to adopt? I just was praying for a baby sister. And my mom goes, no, I'm pregnant. At 42 years old, my mother gave birth to a beautiful, beautiful daughter.
Regina.
The people ask, you know, they ask a lot, like, oh, do you look like your mom? We'll be at the grocery store, and they're like, you look just like your mom. And I'm like, that's interesting. Okay, we just carry on. So, around St. Patrick's Day, don't they always ask you, are you Irish? What's your nationality? are you Irish? I'm like, I don't know, I'm Tracy Ann. I don't know who I am, I don't know what I am. So I went to my parents and I said, are you okay if I just kind of get some information from the adoption agency? And of course, my loving parents said, absolutely. Do you want us to go with you? I said, this is something I want to do by myself. So I got the non-identifying information, and I found out that I'm Polish. I thought, no wonder we have kibasi all the time. My dad's Polish. And I found out that my birth mother and birth father had bright blue eyes, and my birth mother's 5'7", and my dad was 5'11", and my birth mother's brother was a musician. So I thought that was very interesting. In 2004, I contacted the Department of Health because I thought, well, now this is interesting. Now I want to just know a little bit more. And of course, asking my family. And I found a little more information. And then I decided to volunteer at an adoption agency just because I was so curious. And remember in 2010, they had all these adoption stories where the biological mother would meet the child and there'd be rainbows and butterflies and unicorns. And I was like, wow, that's a beautiful thing. I'm going to take this one step further. And of course, I asked my mother, my dad was deceased at the time, and I asked my sisters, are you okay if I pursue this a little bit longer, a little bit more, a little bit deeper? And my sister Chris said, absolutely, I'm going to be there with the video camera. When you meet her, it's going to be amazing. And my sister Liz said, well, I guess so, but I've always thought of you coming out of Mom's coocher. So 14 years ago, I hired a private investigator and I found even more information. I found a photograph of my mother, my biological mother, excuse me, and I do look a lot like her. And from there, I found that her husband had a biological daughter who was also adopted, and she rekindled with her father. So this is a little confusing. I know you need like a little map. But nonetheless, I met Geraldine through the phone, through Facebook, and we had a conversation. And Geraldine had known my birth mother since 1990. She vacationed with her. And so if you can picture this phone call, and I said, Geraldine, can you describe my biological mother to me? And she said, oh my gosh, yes. She's very extroverted, she loves to get up on stage, she likes to sing, she's a belly dancer, she's the life of the party, and I had the ugly cry, the ugly cry. And then at that moment, I felt that the hole, if you will, I felt like I know who I am now. I'm Tracy Ann. I was adopted by Thomas and Regina Solaric way back in the day. And yes, I know who I look like now. But at the end of the day, I'm grateful that my birth mother gave me life. I'm so grateful I was adopted. And we need more positive stories about adoption, about foster care. And I'll say that God guided me every step in my life, and my parents instilled faith into me. And I share my story because I want to share hope and I want to share encouragement. And I'm so fortunate to have grown up in a home filled with love. And my mom and my dad were brought to me by fate, or in our world, God. And she's my friend by choice.
Stand up, Regina. Stand up, Regina.
Shy one made me cry. Just wasting your tears.
beautiful story. And Regina, you're a beautiful woman, and both of you are very fortunate to have each other.
Yes, we are.
So probably one of the most difficult times in life is that bridge that we cross between being a child and becoming an adult. And our next storyteller, I'm just going to say Craig M. Our next storyteller is going to tell us about a time in his life that takes place. So go ahead.
So this is a story called Everything. And it starts in August 1997, when my parents were actually here tonight. Drove me out to SUNY Geneseo from Altamont, New York, where we lived. And for me, going to college was not like, I wasn't like super excited and couldn't wait to get out there. I was like so anxious about the fact that I had just become part of a group of friends that I was not a part of a group of friends until maybe like, I don't know, junior, senior year of high school. And I started to feel like I belonged. And suddenly, everything was going to change. I had to go to a new place. I had to start a new life. And when my parents were in my dorm room, I mean, they dropped me off, and I was crying. I couldn't believe they were leaving. Oh, shit. But you know, like many other hard times in our life, I said, all right, I just got to do it. And they knew I had to do it, and we all just knew. So they went out the back, and I went out the front over to Onondaga Hall. It was the dorm across the way, because someone that I went to high school with, Jay, had said, come to my room after you get dropped off, we'll hang out. He had been there for a couple weeks because he was on the soccer team. So I get to his room. I don't even know if he's in there. Okay, he's in there. He's kneeling next to his fan. And he's like, get in, shut the door. So I kneel down next to him. It's like, oh, okay, we're smoking a joint. So I'm like, you know, maybe this won't be so bad. And then Jay says to me, and then Jay looks at me, and I remember this because I went to high school with him, but I wasn't really good friends with him. He's like, dude, this is fucking great. He's like, I've met all these people. I've been here 2 weeks. I've met all these people. I got this party we're going to tonight. I got the invite. There's people down the hall. We're going to go hang out. And I'm like, you know what? Maybe I was wrong about all this whole time. This is actually going to be great. Maybe everything's okay. So that year goes on that way. And like, I had a ton of fun because everybody there was in the same boat. Everybody there was kind of like finding their own way. Everyone hadn't found their place. But slowly throughout my freshman year, people did find their place. And I wasn't someone who was going to like seek that. So, you know, my friend Jay was on the soccer team, so I would go to events with him, but I wasn't on the soccer team. So they'd be like, who's this? I'd be like, oh, it's my friend Craig. So I was like, Jay's friend Craig. And then people started pledging fraternities. I was like, hell no. And then people started getting houses together for next year and all. So everyone was finding their place. I wasn't. But you know, it wasn't the worst thing in the world. But I went through the summer and arrived back for sophomore year. And I may not have been on a sports team or in a fraternity, but I'll tell you, I was pumped because I'd been invited into this suite of guys, 8 guys that were going to live together. And so we're all up there, waiting for one at a time. People are getting there. We set up the old school entertainment center with this square TV, and everybody's excited that like we're here. The year's starting. There's all this great stuff going on. So we're also living with this guy John. John pulls up. He's got this white convertible, this old convertible, and everybody's so excited because John comes up into the room. He's like, "You guys want to go to Ledgewood State Park? We're gonna have a great afternoon." I was like, "Hey, let's do this." And then he goes, all right, you. All right, Craig, next time for sure. Sorry, buddy. John sucks. God, these things are shit. And so we headed into the year, and it was as I mentioned. I remember times I'd walk around the bar, and I was looking for a group of people that looked at me like, hey, come over here. And a lot of times it just didn't happen. And I'm sure that I didn't have anything to do with that. But this is what it was. It was a mindset, and I struggled with it. So, sophomore year, I'm going through the year, a lot of drinking going on. And I mentioned that because of my health. So I started to kind of get this stomach thing. Believe it or not, that irritates your stomach when you do like a tube funnel. And but anyway, going through the year, and as I mentioned, more and more people were just finding their place. I was really struggling, and just trying to drink through it, go to parties, you know. But I realized at a certain point that I didn't have any options here. I had to pledge that fucking fraternity. And not the good one, with the nice guys that like good music and had been trying to recruit me. I thought maybe it would be better to choose the one with the assholes and the good party stuff. And this was some kind of experience. So I did pledge the fraternity. They just a picture. They ruined the song Hell's Bells for me. They would blast it in this garage, make us link up our arms and wear these stupid shirts, and then they would break glasses inside the garage. And then they'd kick the door open, come and get us, throw us in onto the concrete floor, and then just like hit you a lot. And quiz you. So, it turned out I had an ulcer. Yeah, I had an ulcer, so they beat up children. I'm just saying all this. But anyway, they tried to substitute my alcohol with other stuff. That didn't go great. I just saw the fraternity for what it was. And I was like, I gotta stop. I can't do this anymore. I'm gonna quit. This is like ridiculous. So I de-pledged the fraternity. And let me tell you something about people in fraternities. They don't love it when you de-pledge. So now it's like, not only do I feel like I don't belong, but like when I go out, if I'm standing in the corner with people that are in that fraternity, someone will actively come up to me and be like, get out of here. And so, like, this just, it was just too much. And I said, I gotta go. I got two best friends down in West Virginia. Why am I dealing with these people? They're not my people anyway. Everything was fucked. So I applied to West Virginia. I got in, and I'm gonna make the move. I'm gonna start fresh. I gotta just rip the Band-Aid off. But before that, I was out with my friend Judd. We went out to the local bar, and we were just having drinks on like a Wednesday night. And he said he had just gone to, he was part of, by the way, Judd was part of a house that I really wish I had chosen to live in, because I wasn't part of that group. But Judd was. And he said to me, hey, I went home this weekend, I was talking to my dad about you leaving, and I was telling him how bummed out I am about it. And I'm like, okay. And he said, yeah, man, if you're leaving because you really love your friends at West Virginia, I get it. But if you're leaving because, you don't think people here like you, a lot of people here are really, bummed out that you're leaving. And I gotta tell you, I did not know that. I really thought that no one liked me. And so, what I realized, though, as I look back, is that I basically gave my everything to all these people that didn't care about me, that didn't want me with them anyway. When in fact, in that moment, Judd was everything to me, and I should have given him that in the first place. Thanks.
Yeah.
It's so great to get to know everybody here tonight. I love this night. So, Our next storyteller, Cecily, is going to talk to us about the meaning of a name. Like, what does it mean to you? And she's going to share what it means to her. Cecily being Coleman.
This actually ties nicely to what Craig was talking about, kind of your finding yourself, your identity, how you see yourself in the world, how you interact in the world. A preamble there. Okay. Cecily. Sicily. Celeste. Cecilia. Celery. These are all names I have heard myself called. I would say Sicily is the most common, and it's kind of like, for me inside, but, and I feel like our names shape a little bit how we interact in the world. My name certainly has, because it's unique, because it's often mispronounced. It's just kind of, I have always had to interact with people and either choose to correct them gently or just let it go. But sometimes it's challenging because it's kind of, I hear my name in my own head and it's often mispronounced or butchered or slaughtered. And so, as I have gone through the world, I've just become used to that experience, that interchange of, it's actually Cecily, or, yep, that's me. Yeah, you're trying to call my name, I gotcha. In 7th grade, Katie Dott's older brother, Caleb, who was really annoying, called out of a car window pulling away from the school, Cecily! And I was like, okay, thanks. So because of this, it's just kind of has been a constant thread through my life and how I interact with people. In the waiting room for an appointment is a guarantee of kind of the and I hear it coming. I know, yeah, Cecily or just Sicily. It kind of often goes that way. And so sometimes it's no big deal. I'm so used to it that I say, yeah, I'm Cecily, or it's me. You're trying to get my attention. So because of that, sometimes I choose to sidestep that experience. So when I order takeout or to go, like Starbucks, I have an alias. And the alias is Rachel. It's just a lot easier. There is no question about how to pronounce that. I do not have to go, it's C-E-C-I-L-Y. I-L-I? What's that exactly? So, Rachel, and then, grande, pumpkin spice latte, Rachel. So the only thing I have to do is remember that I'm Rachel in that moment and get my drink. And I sometimes feel a little like I'm looking in this person's eyes and saying, like lying to their face about my name, which sometimes feels a little duplicitous, but it's okay. I've decided it's okay. I can be Rachel for my Starbucks order. In college, I played lacrosse, and at the time my name was Cecily Bean, and so sometimes we had away trips where we'd go to hotels, have to stay there for the night, and then play the game the next day. Back in the days, I think faxes were still used to transfer information. But so the hotel staff and my coach had communicated about the players, and they had grouped people into groups of 4 for each of the rooms. So we got to the hotel. My coach had the slip of paper. She was just going to read aloud the names, who was in which room. So room number 1, Kim Allen, Marissa Kowalczyk, Catherine Roberts, Aaliyah Fink. Okay, room 1 done. Room 2, Alicia Oakley, Ann Evans, Kim Allen and Saucely Brand, and then they went, and we all were like, Saucely Brand? There's no one on our team named Saucely Brand. So we all were looking around and like, Saucely Brand. Saucely Brand. Cecily Bean became Saucely Brand somehow in this crazy game of operator. So, needless to say, that became my nickname on the team and shortened to Sauce. So I was called Sauce, and we had a play called Special Sauce. But anyway, so I think I think about my name, and maybe because it's unique, because it's kind of shaped lots of my interactions, it's more impactful than other people. Maybe people don't have the same experiences with their names, but I'll forever be grateful to my parents who were inspired to use the name of our little town librarian, Cecily, whose engraved child fork I still have. So, thank you. Thank you so much, Cecily.
Well played, Laura. Our final storyteller tonight is Gary Jones.
Hi, Gary.
Gary Jones is the elder in the room tonight in terms of storytellers. And tonight he's going to share with us his origin story. His origin story for Round Lake.
This is really tough to follow the last 9 people who were amazing. And it kind of occurs to me that where else does this happen?
I don't know.
At any rate, I thought that I have to have my notes because I have the butterfly syndrome. I just bounce around from flower to flower and tend to get lost. But, so originally I thought, well, I'm going to just talk about how we discovered Round Lake, and I think a lot of you will get that. You don't pick Round Lake out of a map, but you discover it. And once you get here, you go, ooh, wow, this is really pretty amazing. But in order to get to that point, I have to take a few steps back. And due to amazingly brilliant planning, I entered my junior year of college with a beautiful wife, a 1-month-old daughter, a pile of student loans, and a very patient wife.
Go Susie.
We went to Brockport, New York, and learned the hard way about the economics of living in a college town, especially if you happen to be married with a child. You know, where landlords would pile 4 or 5 students into a bedroom and charge them each $75, $100 a month and make a fortune. Well, you know, we roll in and it's like, man, we can't afford to live in this town. So lo and behold, we kind of head off and say, we got to get some distance between us and the college. We went about 10 miles out of town and saw a for rent sign in an apartment over a bowling alley. Reflecting Valhalla room in this bowling alley. So we went in and talked to the lady, and I don't know, it was something like, yeah, I'm on $175 a month, but I'll give it to you guys for $167.50. Right? So we we didn't have much choice. We took it, and our 1-month-old daughter had a bedroom over the pins. So she really developed the ability to sleep anywhere. But obviously we had to get jobs. And my very patient wife got a job waitressing in the bowling alley. And across the parking lot from the bowling, I don't even know if you know this, but across the parking lot of the bowling alley was a small motel, and she got a job cleaning the motel rooms. And I got a job working the night shift at a gas station, which I was semi-qualified for because my dad had a gas station. And working weekends at the Owens of Illinois glass factory, putting together the boxes for whiskey bottles.
Yeah.
And I was my girl. And I was a full-time student.
Good gosh, that's a lot going on.
Great planning was paying off once again. Another example of my visionary planning, I graduated with a liberal arts degree, majoring in English and philosophy.
Oh, wow.
I wasn't qualified for any job that ever existed. Did I mention my patient wife? Summertimes, I worked, I guess worked is maybe a little bit too strong a word, but I was a folk singer, and I sang in bars, and I was kind of the resident folk singer for the city of Syracuse. Which meant I provided music for the puppet wagon, and anytime any of the bigwigs had an event, they brought me in to sing and provide the entertainment. And it was like we sing Bob Dylan, times they are changing, and all sorts of stuff.
Sing a little for us, Gary.
Well, anyway, summer ended, and I used to perform with a friend of mine from high school who was truly a good musician. And I came to the realization as that summer ended that probably the only job I was qualified for was to be a folk singer. So, we packed up and went to Schenectady, New York, where my best friend lived, and with the plan of embarking on this career as a folk singer. Well, it didn't take very long at all for that to just completely crash and burn. So I had to get a real job. And I got a few real jobs, and the first one was I sold motorcycles. Well, I had a motorcycle, so it made sense that I might sell them. And my second job was I managed a used bookshop, which for those of you that know me, I still have books, a lot of books. And then ultimately, I came to the conclusion that with a kind of a 3 or 4 year old daughter now, we probably ought to get health insurance. And the only way to do that was to work in some sort of established career. Well, I didn't have any qualifications for an established career. So I got low-level jobs in school districts, including Shen. And during this low-level job, I met a guy named Joe Pasquarel. You know Pasquarel Field? Well, that was Joe's dad. And Joe lived with his mom in the house that the mayor lives in now. So Joe kept saying to me, man, you really ought to come check out this place where I live. And I said, yeah, okay. And then we think we really need to make a move because the school district and the school that our daughter was going to need to go to wasn't really one we thought would be good for her or us. So I said, okay, Joe, come on, I'll check out this place where you live. So we got in the car one day, and I followed him up here in my 1967 Volkswagen Beetle. It had no heat and no cooling in the summer. And we got to exit 11, and we came down the hill and rolled into Round Lake, parked in front of his mother's house, the mayor's house, and started to walk through the village. Well, we just got a short distance down Lake Avenue, and I saw this old, dilapidated Victorian house. Almost all the windows were broken out. It was, the grass was this high. It was a disaster. One of the main windows in the turret was broken. So I walked into to the window, and I stuck my head in. And I'm looking around, and I said, Joe, this could be an amazing house, but you'd have to be freaking crazy to buy it. So we continued on, and I said, yeah, we're kind of looking to move someplace, get out of Schenectady, and get into a better school district for our daughter, and a better school for our daughter in particular. And he said, you really ought to meet my grandmother. She has a house for rent. I said, wow, really? He said, yeah, look, it's right on the other side of town. So we walk over, we go to where the Colemans live now. Of course, the Colemans are moving. The musical houses was just a thing, and always has been around Lake, right? So we walk in and meet Mary Bilodeau, who was 90 years old, and just the cutest little thing. I mean, she was just a sweetheart. And Sue tells the story about whenever she has what I have, this chest thing going on, she would take whiskey and rub it on her chest, make her feel better. So anyways, we were talking with Mrs. Bilodeau, and I said, I understand you have a house for rent. She said, yeah, I do. It's kind of like right over there. And it's the house that Sue Stratton lived in. And I said, well, yeah, I'd be really interested in looking at it. She says, well, you can't look at it. There's people in there now, but they're leaving at the end of the month because they haven't paid their rent. So good. Because how much is the rent going to be? $75 a month. This is great. It's like $50.
Gary, what year? What year?
That was a long time ago. It was a deal even then.
75?
33.
Wow.
Wow.
So anyways, I said, we'll take it. We'll take it. We'll be here at the beginning of next month, and it'll be a great thing. He says, they're going to be moving. So, anyways, this is just another example of my amazing planning ability. We drag all our crap out of a third floor apartment into a U-Haul, including, as you can imagine, several hundred books, and head up the Northway to our new house in Round Lake, New York. We're like, who's ever heard of Round Lake, but we're going to move there. So we come down the hill, straight into the village and around the circle, by the auditorium, around the circle, pull up in front of our house, stop the U-Haul, go, holy shit, there's people living in the house. They never left. Damn it. I rented this house, and all our crap in this truck, and the three of us, and no place to go. And I don't even remember how it happened, but Somehow a friend of mine said, well, you can live with us. So that's really nice. People have done that for us our entire life. So we go to Boston Spa, to a small farm, and we go into their house. Jim Carter, some of you may know Jim Carter, and he was a teacher at Shen. And so it's the three of us. It's Jim, his wife, and their 2 kids, and a dog, and a cat, and some chickens, and pigs. And I mean, also, he had a little farm, you know? We put all our crap in his barn, and there we were for a week and a half, coming up on 2 weeks. Kept driving by the house, still people in it. Oh, man. So Mrs. Billard was 90 and she's little, and I'm sure she was intimidated by this crew. So, just so you know, before I tell you this next part, the statute of limitations has run out. So I did, the only thing that I could think of to do, we didn't have any money, you know, except the $75 we'd already paid her. And I became a lawyer for the day. I wrote an eviction letter. Freaking beautiful eviction letter. So we sent it off, so-and-so Esquire, the whole deal, right? And long story short, they moved. And we moved. So it's at that point that I finally began to learn a little bit about a Round Lake cottage. Now, Round Lake cottages were built for summertime. They were not built for wintertime. So you'd see these sweet little cottages, all sorts of gingerbread, the board and bed siding. And the boards, like this was the outside, this was the inside.
Yeah.
We froze. It was crazy. And the warmest place in the house was the closet. We had a whole new meaning to coming out of the closet. So, you know, and back then, in the ancient days, you know, oil was like 35 cents a gallon, and we were paying $50 every 2 weeks to heat that sucker, you know? It's crazy. Well, anyways, we decided, am I right so far? We decided that we needed to do something. And we went to Mrs. Billigan and said, we want to buy your house. And she just never gave us an answer. We figured we could insulate it, we could do whatever. Especially with my degree in English and philosophy. So she never answered. And I guess in retrospect, it's not surprising because she knew we didn't have any money. So, you know, I want to buy a house, don't have any money, but at about that time, a sign came up at 10 Lake Avenue, which is that house that I stuck my head in the window of back a couple pages ago. Sign was for sale. And we, I don't know what we were thinking, but it was in more great planning, I guess. We put an offer in. Now they were asking $7,000. We, being incredibly astute, offered them $6,500. And crazy enough, they took it.
Wow.
So here we are with a house, or an accepted offer on a house, $1,000 to our name. And how the hell are we gonna pay for this now that we put this offer in, right? So that was more really good planning, and we called a friend that had some money, the only one we knew that anyway, and said, what are the chances you'll lend us $10,000? And he said, sure. He sent us a check for $10,000, this was August of that year, and said, put it all on number 2 in the 4th race. So for $11,000, we had to not only buy this house, but get it livable. And we stayed in our house over there in the meantime. We had accepted the offer. The grass was this high. It was like, we're gonna have this house. I want to mow the lawn. I don't want to mow the lawn now, but I want to mow it then. So I called the realtor. I said, can I just go mow the lawn? She said, no. I said, well, why? She says, liability. Yeah, well. I mentioned it to some friends, and the next thing I knew, we walked by and I see the lawn's mowed, but the lawn was like a hayfield. And Bob Sweet is in the middle of it, working away, mowing my lawn. So Bob, what the hell are you doing? You're not supposed to be doing that. He goes, I lost a quarter, I'm trying to find it. So anyways, we closed on the house that whatever day it was in the early, late morning. I go over to the house and I'm walking through the backyard, really overwhelmed. Like, what the hell are we gonna do now, And my neighbor, who's Bill Tuck, is Jack Tuck, and for those that might have known Jack, it was his dad. So he comes out, he sees me in the backyard, he comes out over the fence, he goes, "You the guy that bought that house?" I said, "Yeah, yes I am." So I suppose the first thing you're going to do is get rid of that damn tree. It's like one of those catalpa trees right in the middle of the yard. It was like, I said, Bill, I promise you I'll put it on the list, but it's not high on the list right now. And so later that night, we walked over and said, there's some people in the house. Of course, there were no locks on the house, so of course there were people in there. There have been kids in there forever. And sure enough, we walked in, new homeowners, and there were all of our friends, a bottle of champagne, sledgehammers and shovels and all sorts of stuff. And they just raised hell. By the time they left, there was lath and plaster, whiskey all over the place. Not long after that, and also in the attic of that house was that guy.
Yeah.
And you think there'd be one thing here that in the house that was kind of cool. Somebody had put their foot through his head. I don't remember who it is, but he's an old Laker anyways. The village we donated to the village and they got it fixed up. Shortly after the champagne and the destruction of the house, my wife's family, my very patient wife's family, came up and visited us there. And Sue and her mom walked over towards the house. We got close enough to get a good look. And her mother said, "Oh my, what has he gotten you into?" She was really never was my biggest fan. So we worked very hard for 14 months. And took the boards off the windows, moved in on Halloween.
Ooh.
Now, Halloween was different then than it was now, is now. I mean, now we get thousands of kids from all over the region coming to trick or treat. At that point, it was like, you can't go to Round Lake and trick or treat. That's a dangerous place. We heard the kids walking down the street, and the kids would go, look at that. There's lights on in that house. I'm not going up there. That place is haunted. But we did give out some candy that night to some brave Round Lakers. And due to amazing planning, we started our lives as homeowners in Round Lake, New York on that Halloween. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gary, and thank you, everybody. And we're going to close the evening with Molly's just going to come up and share some stuff. And then Gary is going to sing us a little song.
Oh,
Thanks for everybody speaking tonight. That's a lot. That was a great job. Good job. Okay. And for all the speakers, just so you know, if you were a speaker tonight, there's an added bonus to not having to pay for a ticket. You also get a fabulous prize that Elise made, and they're back here. So when you're all done, come on back and claim your prize.
Nice.
From Elise Winery. I couldn't have done this, of course, without Jen. Jen and Laura. Amy and Eric, they also helped me tremendously. They're not here tonight. And of course, Dan, to everything. Ethan was instrumental for all the decorations. Looking at this audience, I either asked you to tell a story, because I asked a lot of people to tell stories. Yeah, I did. And I asked a lot of people to tell stories, and you guys might know that I'm an English teacher, and I have to ask people to tell stories all the time, and it was greeted with just about as much excitement from you all that it was when I asked my students to tell a story. And I think that's really interesting because I always get from my students, when am I ever going to need this stuff? When am I ever going to need? They always ask, like, when am I ever going to need this stuff? And I always say the same answer, which is, what if you're on Jeopardy? Right? That's the only time you're going to need to know who killed Mercutio. Tybalt, nice. Always know if you're an English teacher. But we need stories. We need stories, but more than that, we need to ask each other for our stories. Because that's what keeps us together, and that's why Round Lake is such a great place, because every place that we heard about from everybody, and they said, oh, remember, and then Bob Sweet, you lost a quarter, oh, Bob Sweet, or, oh, Amy and Eric are here, oh, Amy and Eric. We have to ask for those stories to get those stories, and you're going to hear some amazing stories even when people don't speak. Like ask Kim about the itty bitty polka dot bikini, or like ask Julie about going to the wrong funeral, or like ask Gary about finding a grenade in his house that I'm pretty sure your buddy left there. Ask Holly about running into a burning building to save human beings. Wow. Well, you gotta talk to her. Because we all need these stories, and if we're lucky enough, we can get together in a place like this and share those stories. But if we're really lucky, people will sing about those stories. So I'm going to ask Gary, the one-time folk singer,
from the hecklers who asked him to do it, to come up and Cecily with sauce.
Yes.
So come on up.
Yeah, do it!
Sausage Jones.
That's right. It's our new stage.
Guess what? You're
Cecily.
I don't know about that stage.
So this song was conceived in Round Lake and grew up in New Orleans and then made it back to Round Lake. And that's part of the journey. The song's about the journey. We really need your help with the chorus.
Okay.
And the reality is, if you want to go home tonight, you better sing loud. Because we're not going to let you go until we get done with this. So, should we just go through it once and then?
Let's do it once, so we're gonna break it down.
Okay, keep me on task. Okay.
All right, so we're gonna sing the chorus once for you, and then we'll break it down quickly, and then we'll practice a couple times, and then sing the song.
Never know what you see. Who you meet when you're riding free.
If you know it already, sing.
Pack your bag, come on in. Come find some magic with me.
Alright, so we'll do the first two lines. You never know what you'll see, who you'll meet when you're riding free. Okay, we're gonna practice those. Alright? Gary does a little like, so listen for that.
Never know what you see. Who you meet when you're riding free.
Okay, good job. Listen. Keep going.
Pack your bags,
One back.
climb on in. Come find some magic with me.
Alright. Alright, it's pretty good. Let's just do it. We're gonna loop it twice. And then
We're ready, Rachel.
You never know
Rachel.
what you see.
Rachel's
Who you meet when you're riding free. Pack your bags, climb on in. Come find some magic with me. Do it again.
No, we're good. We're good.
Wanna start?
Yeah, go for it.
Well, I found myself along the Mississippi on the West Bank in New Orleans, walking along that old time levee looking out for my Cajun queen. Well, that old muddy river, it rolls on down to the Gulf of Mexico. But I kept on walking towards that lyrical sunset, hearing music in the streets as I go. That music is filled with all sorts of magic, and magic makes me smile. But the time had come for me to wander, head north for another mile. Never know what you'll see. Who you meet when you're riding free. Pack your bags, come on in. Come find some magic with me. Well, I climbed on down into my 911 road across the Crescent City Bridge. It took about a day, but there I was in Nashville, more magic, more music, more beer. Well, I walked along those Nashville streets till I felt Sunday morning coming down. Then off I went along that lonesome highway on north to some other town. Well, I made it to New York and I-87 on the road to Montreal. Something made me stop at exit 11 for that. There was no reason at all.
Never know what you see. Will you read when you're riding free? Pack your bags, climb on in. Come find some magic with me.
Well, I turned right on down the hill, just beyond the flashing sign. I left into a parking lot. I was weary and needed time. As luck would have it, there before me was Leah's cakery. I decided I would enter, get me some coffee, let my mind come crawling back to me. Well, there was a guy in a flowing white robe with flowers in my pockets all around. And another they called B-Man. And the mayor talking about this little town. Well, I sat down to sip my coffee. There were golf carts everywhere, and a woman being chased by a county sheriff. She was waving her finger in the air. Well, someone said you should take a walk around and see what you can see. I came upon a building, stage and organ, and the music playing sweet and free. Well, I didn't want to leave, but I heard some laughter, and laughter speaks to me. It was something they call fun, fun beer, smiling at me. Well, I joined on in. How could I not when my buddy offered bourbon to me? I drank it down. Oh, I love this town. Who knew a place like this could ever be?
Never know what you see.
Who you meet when you're riding free.
Pack your bags, climb on in. Come find some magic with me.
You never know
What you see.
who
Who you need when you're riding free. Pack your bags, come on in.
Come to Round Lake with me.
That's real. Thank you.
Yeah.